Hello guys, and welcome to a quick video on ZBrush Speed Sculpt. And in this one we're gonna sculpt another character, and we're gonna try to do everything in one go, including skin detailing, texturing, everything with one go. Okay, so I'm gonna go start with a sphere, make polymesh 3D, right, and then we can Dynamesh it. So here, Dynamesh. Alright, turn on symmetry of course, and then I can start using move to move it down for the front to define the jawline, like that. And in the front view, of course, I need to narrow it down. Right, go to the top view. You want to give the head the correct volume, so it's bigger on the back, somewhere over here, smaller on the front. Right, kind of like an oval shape, more or less. Okay, right. And then you need to also go to the side view and tweak it. So the high ground is somewhere on the back, and here is somewhere in the middle for the furthest to the back. Okay, let me tweak the positioning of the jaw. And then to the back of the head, you dig in a little bit to define the base, right, of the skull. Okay, on the back you can go ahead and try to find the little ridge here. It's kind of like an M-shaped ridge, which is the connecting part from the neck to the skull. So something like that. A little bit lower than that, of course. Right, and then maybe tweak the jawline a bit more. And many students forget to do this part. This is the chin is going forward, right? A lot of students do this, right? That's not how a human looks like, right? It has to go forward, right? This part of the chin. Okay, right. Okay, and then on the base of the head, you just need to mask out where the neck is. Okay, Control click and drag it out for the neck. Okay, and then Dynamesh it, and then I can quickly use Clip It Up to lay out the rest of the bust. Right, we're not going to do the full body, of course. This is going to take some time, but this is something we can do. Alright, so just quickly draw some volume and smooth them out. Basically, you don't need to do too much. All right. So I think the only thing you really need to mark out is where is the clavicle. Okay. And the big chest bone, they call it sternum or something, right? And they have this kind of like connections. Okay, you can also try to specify the attachment that's from the head to the clavicle. And also here, a lot of people end up with this big angle here. That's not true, right? There's some blending here, right? So let me do that. Dynamesh. And that's the major mistakes a lot of beginners make. And they're not very hard to fix either, right? Right, so that's the basic layout. Yeah, as you can see, it shouldn't take too long, but you have to remember the important proportions and the important extremes, right? Where is the high ground? Where is the first to the back, right? How does it look like from the top, from the side view, from the front view, right? If you can just try to make sure that you got those things in the right place, in the right proportion, in the right shape, then it shouldn't be too hard to get it right. Okay? Alright. And then let me mask out where the ear is. Control click to reverse the mask and just drag the ear out, basically. Right, and then I can give it some help by dragging around. to get to a ear shape, more or less. Kind of like a C shape, basically. Okay, Dynamesh. Smooth it out. Right, and then to the side view, you can also give it some help. Make it kind of like wrapping around here. Right. Okay. And then we don't need to do too much yet, just the basics, so that, and then you can give it some more characteristics by dragging the contour a bit, digging into the low ground, and have the Y shape appear by just using a few brushes like the clay build up, the damp standard, and also the good old standard brush, which is one of my favorite brush. It's okay, because it's gonna allow me to do a lot of big or smaller shape changes and being able to define ridges. Okay. And I also have the this guy here, right? Okay, and this has to go backwards so that it's forming also a Y shape visible from the side view. Okay, and you can do a lot of move brush to help you to get it to the right place. And digging into the ear hole, basically. Yeah, that should be enough for now. And then I measure it. Okay. Alrighty. So moving on to the face part, we can start to define the important landmarks like the eye socket. Okay, I just use the clay build up to dig in. Right, and then you can define the root of the nose. Right. If you ever did a skull sculpting, you can already imagine what's going on with the rest of the shapes. Right. And also the cheekbone in here, right? The cheekbone. And so if that's where the eye socket is, you can already imagine where the cheekbone goes, right? And also where the whole orbit is located at. And it is not necessary to really mark those out, but it's kind of helpful for you to imagine, especially for beginners, like where are those things. Make sure that you take care of their proportion. And that's one of the most important things. It's not about the detail shape, it's about where they are and how big they are. And those could easily be done in the wrong. It could easily do that wrong, right? And that's not gonna help at all if they're in the wrong place. No amount of detail would compensate that mistake, right? Right, as you can see, that's basically the eye socket. Right, and the cheekbone, right, it's kind of like a tilted square shape in here, right? That's where this is. And then, of course, this is just for demoing purposes. You don't need to do this. Okay. Anyway. So yeah, let me smooth it out because you don't really see the bone being that skinny, right? So I'm just gonna fill that in. All right, but it's important though to realize that it's contour of the face, right? Especially on the eye area, you'll see this bump from the orbit and this bump from the cheekbone, right? Those things has to be in there, which form this nice looking transition, right? And this is also the characteristic defining areas that you find those places in the right spot, in the right proportion, the character will feel already looks like the character you're doing. Okay. Or if you done them in a unrealistic way, the character will never look right. So that's the things you need to keep an eye on and trying to pay attention to. Okay. And then of course, yeah, moving it down to the face, we'll have the nose in the middle. To me, it's basically just gonna be some horizontal and vertical brushes, right? And then of course, trying to tweak it afterwards, after you have the volume. Okay. Side of the nose, right? Let me blur that out. Digging in the holes for the nostrils. And then refine the form afterwards. Okay, this is also drastically different for different people. Nose has a lot of characteristics you can capture, so make sure that you pay attention to the character you're looking for. You can see a lot of interesting things happening to the nose, and also it's not quite all symmetrical, so you can find some asymmetrical things in the future, right? Alrighty, and then moving on to the mouth, we can define some volume first. And you dig in the seam between the upper and lower lip, and then you just fill in the missing volume around them. Okay. Alright, now you want to also take a look at it from the bottom view. The mouth will have a bigger arc, something like this. Okay. And after defining that, then you can figure out the frontal parts. Here, for example, we don't even have an upper edge, so I need to go ahead and try to define that. Okay, now this is too much of a bump, so I need to figure out why. Maybe this needs to go forward more. At the end of the day, it's not about those details or how clean it is. It's about trying to realize if there's some fundamental problem. Most times, the detail is fun because they're gonna be there more characteristic things, right? So they could be drastically different. The main problem is when the character doesn't look right. It's mostly some fundamental shapes that's not right. I'm trying to define the chin and redefine the jawline and see if this is getting too thin now. Right. Okay. And let me smooth that out. I'll give it some more volume to blend nicely to the rest of the face. Okay. And of course, for the corner of the mouth, I can define some volume here to, this is basically what do we call that? The node, right? The node of the mouth, which is the muscles that goes down various ways, connected to this little node, right? That's kind of like dragging the whole whole mouth corner around, and that's one of the major volume. And the other one will be the pillar of the lip, which is underneath the lips, right? Something like that. Let me smooth out these things. Alrighty. And then moving on down to the chin, I think I just need some more adjustment. Give the side of the jaw a bit more volume. Yeah, let's see how that looks like. right? Now when you're defining the cheekbone, really need to pay attention to this contour here. Now this could easily go too far, right? You want to really make sure you take a look at this angle when you're tweaking it. The widest part is not here; it's here, right? So this is not going to be too wide compared to the whole face. Okay. And the widest part of the face is over here, right? It's on the forehead, on the back of the head, sorry. And let me tweak the position of the ear. I think it was too high before, so you can see it's a lot of tweaking on the bigger shapes, especially in the beginning stage. It's not about how detailed things are. It's about where they are, how big they are, and their general shape, right? General shape and proportion. All right. Now from this angle, I think the bottom of the face is sticking out too much. So let me drag them back in a bit more. Feels a bit better. Okay. Alright. Now moving on down to the eyes, I need some reference from a spherical shape for the eyeball. So I'm gonna insert a Sphere 3D, scale it down. Okay, and make it smaller. Okay, do a mirror and wild. Turn on symmetry, and that's going to be underneath modify topology, underneath geometry, modify topology, and then mirror and wild, right? So it's in there. I have my quick shortcut, custom menu basically. Doesn't hard to learn how to do that. It's going to be fundamentally helpful, right? So definitely you need your own UI. The default ZBrush UI is not very good. Okay. Anyway, so now I'm gonna draw some brush around the upper part of the eye, just to define the eye, the eyelid. Okay. And that's the upper eyelid. And of course, I can use stamp standard to draw around it to maybe give it a more visible ridge. Right. Go here and check this up and in a bit more. Yeah. And you also want to pay attention to where this is. If I can mark that out, that's where the pupil is, right? So that looks like this is totally wrong, so I need to move it outwards a bit more, right? Okay, now back here to the face. And I can then do my further adjustments. Lower eyelid, just again some clay build-up would give me the chance of doing that. Right now when I locate, I think this has to be higher now. Right. Okay. So it's really helpful if you can just have that front of the eye flattened, so that way you can see, okay, I'm gonna get the positioning of the eyeball is very clearly wrong if it's wrong, right? Or maybe that's because of your eyelid is in the wrong place, right? Whatever that is, you need to make adjustment. Okay. Corner of the eye is sharp, so you want to give it the correct volume, right? Correct volume, correct shape. Alright, lower eyelid. And that's too big of a volume there, so let me smooth it like that. Okay. Again, at the end of the day, you don't worry too much about those because those are easily fixable. Right? You still wanted to pay attention to what's going on to the bigger proportion. Alright. Now when I locate, I think this is probably too big, so I'm going to shrink it down, makes the eye look smaller. Alrighty. I think also it can be deeper, so let me drag it in here. The same goes for the eyeball. Alright. Okay, now it's time to start to take a look at the global picture, at the whole picture, and see if there's something that needs tweaking. Things like size and positioning of those various parts of the face. And if there's something, some medium level detail that's not in the right place, you can start to make adjustment. Like I think I need some more volume here. Right. Cheekbone, of course. Alrighty. I think I may have to give the forehead some more volume. And then here you want to define the variations or the up and downs of the head. Basically, above the eyebrow, you have the brow ridge, right? And it's kind of like a high ground here, and something like that. And then you have, of course, the frontal eminence, or basically a big bump, right, in the front. And give it something, right? Something like that. Alrighty. And sometimes you can use the clay build-up to help you, the edge polish to help you to define the planes of the face, right? Polish it more. But you want to use it also scarcely, because it's flattening things. None of the parts of the face is flat, right? So, most of those are arcs. So this just help you to define some of the planes. It's going to be helpful for some of the bony area, like here. Maybe you can use that to help define some hard surface. But mostly they are still rounded, so you want to use it to form. Even you're using edge polish, right? You want to use it to polish an arc, right? Instead of polishing out a plane, if that makes sense, right? Okay. You also want to pay attention to the depths here between the eye corners and the base of the nose. Right, this part has its own depths, so you want to really take care of that. All right. Alrighty, let me maybe just make the eyes a bit smaller as well. I think it's still looking big for some reason. Right, so I'm gonna try to shrink it more. You can stay here for as long as possible until you're happy with the shape you're getting. Right, one of the good things you can do is to look at the silhouette. And go to the side view and take a look. That's one thing you can take advantage of with the newer version of ZBrush. And also you can zoom out and look at the whole thing. Okay, and then do your own judgment. I think I still want to shrink the eye. Okay, a bit more. Just a little bit more. Okay. Until it reaches to a proper proportion. Alright, this should take you something around half hour or something like that to adjust. If you're really serious, right, you would probably spend enough time on it. 30 minutes is not a lot of time, right? Found it's alrighty. And Dynamesh again. Oh, this time we can higher the resolution now. So in the Dynamesh we can crank that up to 512 and then Dynamesh it. This will give me a lot of things to work on now. right? Okay, now that's the first pass only, and we can move on to the second pass. So I can just quickly smooth out the whole thing because I didn't do any details, so this is fun. This is not losing anything actually. And this is when I can really start to define the detail. Okay. So what I can do is I can go ahead and define the actual ridge of the eyelid. And then I can define if there's any folding, right? Sometimes you have another extra fold. So what I can do is mask this. Right, something like that. And then use the move brush to move this out and down to create that folding. And smooth it. And then need to do some adjustment, no big deal, just some movements should be fine, shouldn't be too hard to do. Can do like a general smoothing to get it look better. Then you need to man, of course, how this thing changes, right? It's not gonna be the same thickness all the way through, and may not be as parallel, right? So I need to do some more adjustment in here. Okay, it's not about like how fast you go with it. It's about how accurate it can be eventually. Right? So you can go slower and get it right. It's not a bad practice, right? I think you'll soon realize, not very soon, but sometimes you'll realize that it's not about the process, the steps you take that will guarantee you get the right thing. You can have various different steps. I believe everyone does it differently, having different ways, different workflows, different brushes, and that's irrelevant. The relevant thing is, are you able to see the problem, capture the characteristic, and being able to have your own way, right? To achieve the thing you see. And no matter what that way is, that method is, it doesn't matter, right? As long as you can do it eventually. So don't get too locked down to like a workflow, right? That's not the important thing. You have your own workflow. It's going to be slightly different compared to others or whatever you have learned before. It's just helping you to understand what's important and help you to practice. But eventually, you just have to stick with a workflow you feel familiar with. You know what to take care of in every step, right? And also what to take care of in all steps, right? There's things that you have to take care of in all steps, like the bigger proportion that you tweak all the time. Okay, but you can see while I'm doing this kind of like detailing stage, right? I zoom out most of the times when I have done something, right? Zoom out and take a look, and then go back in. If there's something wrong, you need to fix it right away, right? And apparently there's not much. I think there's not much that needs to be adjusted. I think bigger shapes are doing okay. I can maybe just have some fun with defining some of the volumes. Remember that things are rounded, right? So you can see I'm trying to figure out the actual volume of this lower eyelid, right? Also the airbag area. This whole part of the volume has to be defined correctly. And that's when I really like this standard brush with a lower intensity. You can use it to define the volume, see how much more rounded I'm able to make it by just using that. Now this is hard to achieve with the clay build-up because it's going to be destroying right things a lot. But with the standard brush, I'm able to, with a low intensity, right, I'm able to do it nicely. There's some trick, right? It's really helpful. But once you understand what you need to achieve, right, you pick a brush to do it. And that can be a different brush. I think there are other brushes. Some people doesn't use the standard brush at all. Right, but that's fun. That's no problem at all. There's just different ways of doing stuff. That's not the key factor that's going to deciding, right? Using or not using a brush will not decide the final result in this case. Right. Okay. Now moving down to the nose. I think the nose is doing okay for now. I can maybe use the edge polish to help me define some of the harder surfaces of the nose. Oh, of course, the nostrils is kind of like blurry now, so I need to dig in. And define the contour. So a lot of beginners are making this too blurry. This is probably some of the most sharp areas of the face, right? You can see like really visible defined contours. So don't hesitate to just use damn standard to sculpt around it to get to the right shape. Yeah, I think I've seen some really defined sharp shapes in there, so I'm trying to define it. Alright. Okay, and then moving on down to the face. This is the part that you sometimes overlook. The volume of the cheekbone is not a given. You really need to go back and forth here. A lot of times, sometimes a lot of dragging around to get it to the right shape. Again, the standard brush could be helpful too. Right, give it some volume and try to adjust it. Okay, and I'm defining some depressions in there as well. I don't want it to be having too much fat in there, so I'm going to shrink the bottom area. And define some of the volume in here. Okay. So there's much to learn, right, when you're doing sculpting. It's a good thing, because that means you can keep on growing. If there's not much to learn, then your profession is too simple. Anyone can do it, right? And so it's hard to separate yourself from others. So yeah, it's not a bad thing that when there is a lot of things to learn. All right. So for the nose, for the lips, right, I can just now use the standard brush again. As you can see, I use it a lot in the detailing stage because it's a really helpful brush, for me at least, right, to define contour like that. The lower lip, the ridge, right, on the lips can be easily defined using the standard brush. And I can give it some more volume down there. Okay. Right. You can see there's no multiple steps. 2 steps. Define the basic shape. Second step, finish the detail. And you don't need more steps. 2 steps. Bigger shape, detail, and then maybe eventually just add skin, small skin details. But just those 2 passes, you should be get it to almost like just needing some small shapes, smaller shapes like pores and wrinkles after this second step. So I need to do something also to the ear. Help defining the forms. Okay, all right. So don't try to focus on speed. Sometimes like you hear the term speed sculpt, you think that you need to do fast. That's not the point, right? It's not the point. You'll be able to do fast. You feel that you're fast when you are familiar with it, when you get fluent with everything. That's not something you pursue. That's something you get eventually. You got speed. Speed will catch up once you know what you're doing, right? And you're confident also. So sometimes it's that confidence that's stopping the student. I think it's sometimes it's a mysterious process, like you feel like you can never do it. It's that feeling that's making it hard for you. I can use the inflate brush to help it. So if you feel like it's hard, it's supposed to be, right? But it's not gonna be hard every time. In the future, at someday when you really get it, it's gonna stop being hard. It's gonna be becoming something more enjoyable to do, right? So you have to learn to deal with frustration. You have to learn to deal with not improving. Not improving doesn't mean you're not improving. You just have to gather enough, practice enough to see that change. If you look at a tree for a whole day, you don't see it grow, right? You're not seeing it grow at all. That's not the point, right? It's not gonna grow in one day. But if you look back in 3 months, the tree will definitely, you're gonna definitely see the tree gets bigger, right? And the same goes for you. It's just the improvement is too small that you don't see it, right? You're still improving, so keep at it and you'll be fine, right? Okay, well, yeah, and that's gonna be another pass for the ear. I just did some more adjustment to the proportion, making the shapes more clear, but that's really all there is, right? And this is something around 40 minutes, right? So the second detailing pass is actually taking lesser time in this case, but of course there are a lot more things you can do in here. I just didn't really pay too much attention to be too careful, because this is not gonna be a real project, right? This is just gonna be a demo. Okay, so 40 minutes, and then after that you can go ahead and start to do those smaller skin details. So let me show you that part. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the surface and then go on to noise and zoom in. You can see we have some noise in here. You can change the noise scale to make it bigger and drag that down until it feels like pores. Maybe too much. Yeah, and make the size a bit bigger. Okay, for a male character, maybe that's better in this case. Yeah. All right, and hit OK. Right, and then apply to mesh. and then apply this general noise on the surface of the model. Okay, and this will be helpful because then you can really use that as a base, and whatever you do after will have some basic things supporting it, and it feels better when you're sculpting with some of the basic noise in here, right? And then we can go ahead and start sculpting detailed variations. Okay, for example, here on the eye, we can start to use the DAM standard to draw out some of the winkles, right? The winkles are fairly thin, so you don't cut them really deep, right? And also they are subtle, so you don't want it to make them equally sharp and equally strong. You just find some of the primary ones and enhance these guys. Make sure that you don't go overboard, right? But really, these things are not supposed to be too hard. Oh yeah, and also you can try to toggle on this one thing. What do you call it? Yeah, the Sculptures Pro. That will definitely allow you to do some more detailed sculpting if you wanted to do that. Try that. You can see it's able to retopologize what's underneath, really making a dense model out of it, right? So the smaller the brush is, the more detail you'll be able to get by using this brush. But also it's going to be having a big performance hit, so you need to be careful. Using it will drastically reduce your performance. Okay, you can also use the standard brush to build some more volume around these various winkles, right? Because they're not just lines, they're supposed to be basically a strands of tissue, right? So you kind of wanted to give them the correct volume, not just some deep depression in there. I think I don't like too much of a performance hit in there, so I'm gonna turn that off for now. Okay. All right. And also don't get too sensitive to how good it looks like in the beginning. Right? If it doesn't look right here, that's probably just because that's the only part that has it, right? So you just keep on going, right? Don't deny the work you have done yet if it doesn't look quite okay. That's fine. It's not the end of the world yet. At the end of the day, the student who don't really deny themselves that much, be brave and do more, can advance and get better faster. Okay. Alright, so let me maybe define the lower eyelid a bit more. Okay. Alright, and keep on going. Now to the side of the cheekbone, right? Of course, you need to really pay attention and take a look at your reference. But it's basically a bunch of lines wrapping around the cheekbone, basically, right? Okay. Let me enhance some of the parts that I think could be stronger. Alright. And also here on the corner of the eye, you can use the standard brush using drag rectangular, change the alpha to something like alpha 07. And you can start dragging out some dots. That's what's happening, right? If you look at yourself in the mirror or look at some detailed images, you'll see that. Okay, some dot like that on the corner of the eye. Right. Let me also enhance some of the winkles in here. Now be careful about the amount of brush stroke you draw out, this intensity, because you have the basic layout in there already, the basic pores in there already, so it'll be hard to smooth now, right? So you have to pay attention to what you draw out. There are more advanced tricks that can actually make this part easier. Like you can actually convert its basic noise coverage as a what do you call it? Yeah, a displacement map or a bump map. You can preview that in ZBrush using the displacement section here, but that's going to take some time to set up, right? Sometimes it's not that intuitive, but it's going to be easier after the setup. Okay, all right. Now another thing about the human faces is they're not perfectly clean. Oh, actually there's some more thing I need to do. Yeah, let me also do some second level changes to the second level shapes, like, you know, what's happening above the eyebrow. I can have some more up and downs. And here is also the time you can try to turn off symmetry now, because it's not quite symmetrical anyways, right? Can pay attention to some more interesting basic variations. You can see I'm defining the up and downs, right? And more carefully. This is a small shape change, right? So you really need to take your time and do it. Okay. Alrighty, and then let me turn off symmetry, turn off symmetry, and then do some winkle sculpting over here as well. Okay. I'm not doing a super old man, so this wouldn't be too much. Okay. And also, move brush can be really helpful in this kind of like parts. You can use move to really enhance some of the parts you need to enhance. Okay, you can see even at this stage, it's not about tweaking, adding small details all the time. As you can see, I'm doing bigger shape adjustment now again, right? It's a never-ending process. The bigger shape is always getting adjusted, no matter on what stage you're in. Right? You tweak the bigger shape all the time. Right? That's just the way it is. Right? Because you don't get it right. You're not perfect, right? You're not a machine. You'll get it wrong. Something must be wrong, right? And you have to deal with that in the future, right? Make it right, make it better, if not all correct, every time when you're visiting the bigger shapes. Okay. Now for the winkles above the eyelid, there oftentimes is like a parallel horizontal lines. You can try to do some more winkle sculpting here and there. After you did the bigger thing, right? It's just gonna be, sometimes you dig into the details, sometimes you jump out and tweak the bigger shape. Right, you can also see that like, I'm doing really subtle sculpting there, and it's not something really that visible. Kind of like a diamond shaped skin winkle goes around, as you can see, something like that. Right. Okay, and standard brush, let me dig in. At this point you can see I don't really use the smooth brush at all, because I know that if I smooth I lose everything in there. That's when the standard brush will be the primary way that I use to define shapes. Now using smooth brush is actually a good practice. Sometimes it's gonna force yourself to try to get it right, right? It's like the old traditional ways of practicing traditional art. If you stop using the smooth brush, stop smoothing things, and right, you'll be paying more attention to what's going on. Right, you have to get it right. Otherwise, there's no way to erase it. You have to live with it, right? So, okay. Right. Yeah, just moving on down. One of the part of the face is here, right? You again, this part is gonna have visual effect. You can see how much volume I'm trying to give it, right? If I Control Shift and drag over here, right? This is an arc, right? This is an arc, not something that's flat, or might be flat for some people, but not for the one I'm doing. Okay. Let's see, now I'm using Move Brush to refine the cheekbone. There are a lot of tricks to understand forms. For example, planar shapes, right, to define the But at the end of the day, there's no flat plan on the face of a human being. So you limit that into your own understanding, but not on real practice. You can start with that, but again, human face are rounded, right? It's not gonna be flat. It's a bad practice to make it too flat. Okay. And it's not that hard to make it rounded. You can use either standard brush, right? You can see how much rounded it becomes when I drag around it, right? Or you can use move to move things out, right? Because of the natural fall off of the brush, you're able to get something more rounded. But you want to control the amount of roundness, of course. Sometimes it's too much. Like I think I'm doing too much now in this area, so I'm trying to make it not rounded that much. Okay, it's about the amount, right? It's not about that's something. It's also about what exactly is the form. And also, nothing is perfect. You can do have some more fun with the form you're building by turn off symmetry and drag things around a little bit more differently, right? Like here, this could be higher, for example, right? For like a different, for like a real human being, nothing is perfect. It's not perfectly smooth, or perfectly symmetrical. Maybe define some winkle in here as well. So again, don't deny things you have done yet. Wait for the last minute. Right? Don't easily say, okay, this looks wrong, I'm gonna erase it. No, you're not gonna make any progress. Right? Maybe it's not wrong. It's just the other part you haven't done the other part yet. Now, of course, it's gonna look wrong, right? It's like you're drawing something like you're trying to advance too much in one part of the drawing. Of course, the other part will look behind and just doesn't feel right at all, right? So you have all those things laid out before you say, okay, this is wrong, right? And you limit yourself from using a smooth brush, if that's possible. That can really force yourself to think it that way. There's a lot of wrinkles going here. I gave it some of that. Oh, that's too much. All right. Now, of course, the lip is the part I can smooth because you don't see pores on the lip, right? So let me turn on symmetry again and smooth that out. Okay, for this part we need to define the different type of winkle on the lip, right? So let me re-enhance the seam between the lips, and then I can start drawing out the lines. Now there are basically those kind of lines that's going around. For the upper lip, there are smaller and thinner lines. You can make some crossings, no problem on that. Okay. Right. And that should already feels like the lip. And then you can go in and do some smaller winkles. Mostly, let me turn on that. On the ridge of the lip, you have some more thinner, more defined winkles. But you can still try to define some of the smaller winkles from the bottom up, right? And you can also use the standard brush to define some more volume after those winkles. Of course, the ridge needs to be re-enhanced. Right. Okay. Now moving on down to the lower lip, you have bigger winkles basically. Let me draw them out, something like that. Sometimes it's X shape, like what I drew out in there, right? And then you can start laying out smaller winkles. Let me turn on that Sculptris Pro for this. You redefine the ridge. Maybe turn that off. I'm having performance issues. Right, draw some more vertical lines. It's kind of like blending to the outside. Okay, on the corner of it, on this part, sometimes you see like a more like a visible ridge going out, right? And then you see, yeah, the volume of the lip, I think it's losing some volume in here. It's collapsing in too much. You have a little valley in here, a little valley in there, right? Okay, alrighty. And then I can use the snap brush to just give it some more volume in there. Okay. And then I can go back to move brush and try to enhance some of the volume. And sometimes you see some irregularities in here, and just give it something, right? Something would already be helpful. Right. So that's another pass, right, of skin detailing basically. I think I can maybe extend this a bit longer so that they go through and have all the winkles. However, all those things are supplementary to the shape, right? There's no matter how much detail like this you add to the skin, to the face, it wouldn't help with anything wrong with the bigger form. So you need to also keep looking for anything that's actually fundamentally wrong, right? Not just adding things. That's not gonna be enough, right? There will be something wrong here and there that you need to really pay attention to and fix. Now let me define the connection here. So whenever I'm doing this, it's hard to really speak because I'm trying to be careful, right? It's very easy to make something wrong, like the smaller details, so you need to pay some more attention. And of course the winkles around the neoliberal fold, here you can keep on adding some more smaller winkles here and there. This is not going to be one single line, right? So you can try to add something more in here. Even sometimes around the lip you can add some more lines going across the direction of the lip. Alright. Now maybe those are too big now when I look at it. Yeah, it's too visible. I probably did that too much. Okay, but let's see. Let's not try to deny it yet. Another thing I want to make is going to be the variations of the pores. So I'm going to standard brush and change that to drag rectangular. I'm going to choose the alpha 07 again. But this time when I'm drawing those out, I'm holding down Alt and draw out those smaller pores. Now you have more pores on the cheek. And something like that over there. There's something more of that on the tip of the nose. You have a bigger pores as well. And of course where you have the beard grow out, right? You can have all these things in there too. Right, you can see the variations that's needed, right, to be around the mouth. And also for where you grow the eyebrow, you have a bigger pores basically, right? Maybe those sizes are too big in there too. So sometimes I create a custom alpha for this. That would be easier than drawing those out. But if I'm doing a speed sculpt, this wouldn't be a big concern, because again, I'm not using it for production, just trying to make it go, make it work as fast as possible. Okay. Oh, what did I do in there? So this should be something I have like 1 hour in, right? 1 hour in. And one last thing that's needed for like a human skin, human body, is the irregularities. This is too uniform. Everything looks too clean, right? So we can try to have those variations here. That's going to be also the standard brush. I'm going to choose a different alpha here. This guy, alpha 08. If you drag that out, you can see it's adding a lot of wobble, right, to the surface. But that's too much of a wobble. So I'm going to change that to like a lower resolution. Drag that out. Now, you may not see a lot, but that's the point, right? It's not going to be a lot. But that's going to introduce some variations on the shape of the face, right? You can see now adding a little bit of that will make the skin looks more real, because it's not going to be perfect, right? There's some smaller up and downs, not going to be as smooth. So you can see adding those will definitely help to make the skin looks real when you zoom away to this angle, right? Before it was too clean. Now just having a little bit of that would really help. Okay. Another thing you can do though to make it easier to operate with is to, before you do those operations, you can go to morph target, and then you can store the morph target. And then you can drag out as much as you want. And you can use the erasing method to, by using the morph brush to get something back to smooth afterwards. Right. So this is kind of like a secondary detail, right? And then you can choose to erase some of the parts and make it look not as bumpy now. This is too bumpy now, right? too bumpy. Right, but then you can use BMO, morph brush, and you can morph some of the parts back. Like for example, the nose wouldn't have too much of these kind of like bump. And maybe not the lips. I can find some areas to clean that up. Maybe those details are just too big in some areas. But yeah. Basically another path of variations we can add to the face to make it feel more real, right? You can see even now I'm trying to see if there's some adjustment I can make to the face to really make it real. At the end of the day, again, it's not about those details you add, it's about those general up and downs, and are they right? If they're not right, then yeah, of course it's never gonna look right, right? So pay attention to those more. If there's a chance to make improvement to those things, you go for it. You spend some time in it, right? So yeah, this is about 1 hour of quick sculpt or speed sculpt. Now you should have the basic form and the detailing added in on some level already. Now there's no time limit on how much you'll stay here in this stage. You can keep on adding details, refine details, right? You can be in here for a long time, right? That's because this is all detailing. Sometimes this is actually no fun, right? If you don't like doing detailing, this is no fun at all. But it's a critical stage to get your model to the next level, of course. And this is all manually done, right? There are other advanced tricks to get scanned data, instead of this. You just draw every wrinkle yourself, right? It may not be as smart sometimes. Like people actually do like create scanned human skin and use those as displacement map or bump map to get it to work. Okay. Sometimes I use a combination of these things. So I will use that first to have a general coverage, and I will still go through some passes to add my own detail. Okay, you can see I'm adding something in there, right? Kind of like some irregularities on the face. Again, something you cannot overlook, because everyone has some of that, like a little mole here and there, or some other things. So make sure that you also add those things if you want to make the character feel more real. Turn on that. You can have some, maybe not in there though, somewhere in here, I guess. Little more be easier to use the clip build up for this job. Yeah. The mole here and here. Make some big adjustments. Try to avoid the complete symmetry, right? So have some variations. You constantly check this angle and see if you got it right or not. Okay, yeah, that's 1 hour and 10 minutes. Okay, for that, for the whole sculpting part. I didn't do anything on the neck though, so probably need to catch up on that part. I can draw some wrinkles like that. Yeah, and then maybe to enhance some of the basic forms. Yeah, and I need smoothing to do that actually in this stitch, so I probably need to reapply the noise in there if I wanted to, or maybe that's fun, I guess. Yeah, let's not worry about the neck part because I forget to do that. It's a look weird, as you can see, right? Back then I was talking about that might be too much of a winkle in there, but as you can see, adding the rest of the things would actually say, you know, it's not bad. It's now settled in nicely, right? So basically, at the end of the day, they may just work if you keep on going. Because again, it's not because they're wrong, but it's rather the rest of the things is not created yet. So of course it's gonna feel wrong because you haven't done the rest of the things, right? Another important trick though is to try to find the primaries. Like here, this area and this area is gonna be the strongest winkles, right? So when you make variations, you're able to they're gonna feel more natural looking. Alrighty. So when it comes to coloring, it's actually not gonna be too hard either. You just find the color zones and have some variations. So for example, here I can just fill it in. Color, I'm gonna fill it with a basic skin color. Yeah, something like that. And I'm gonna go for color, fill object, right? And then I can start to add some extra color variations in between the right color, and start to and then use the RGB instead, right? To add some red tint. So that's the basic color variations, right? To the cheek, to the lips, of course, tip of the nose, right? And then various other areas, like the nose, for example, the ear, right? So anywhere you have more blood, you'll have more red, basically. So that's the areas. Of course, it's going to be happening to all other areas. So you go around and you try to add those things. Right? It's not that difficult. It's the red tint, right, to those various areas. And those two variations are already kind of like making it feel more like textured, right, more or less. There are a lot of color series about the human skin methods to make it work. But at the end of the day, it's just those basic distribution variations that you can just try to add. And I have no alpha. I just do it manually. Because you should be able to do it just that, right? Just like that. And of course you can change it to blue, right? And this is when you can have a layer, because it may not be as subtle as you want it to be. Yeah, but this is not bad actually. Yeah, I can just use the blue color to paint out some of the blue tint areas to give it the blue tint I need. That's gonna be some of the concave area. Now you can have some more blue tint. On the blue tint. Okay. And I think the most accurate way of doing this would be, not the most accurate, but most safe way or easy way to do this would be, you get again a human face texture, right? You just slap it on top of your model first as a base, and then you can do whatever you want afterwards. Okay. Another thing we can do is to make the color of the pore a little bit more different, or the low ground basically. So and also one more color too, the yellowish color with a new layer. I can paint some of the green as the yellow color to some of the bony areas, like the forehead, for example, or the T-zone. right? You can have some more yellowish color tint. Some of those color, some of the color scheme was talking about, you have some more yellow in there. Yeah, and various parts, sometimes they don't really agree with each other, so you just try to observe, maybe and find some more variations you can see, but try to be subtle, though. Those color changes will not be very apparent or having a very high contrast. So you want to, oh, what's going on here? So you wanted to keep it in a manageable contrast, and I can lower that down to 0.9 or something. Yeah, just to slightly weaken it. Okay. Alrighty. And then we're not going to talk about the eye today, so let's not do that. Don't want it to be too long. It's already 1 hour 16 minutes, so too long. Let me bake all. I don't really need to have to reserve all those layers. I'm just trying to find more characteristic maybe of the forehead, because I want the silhouette to feel more interesting as well. Yeah, you can see how much more character you can give it by basically dragging this out more and drag that out more, right? Of course, I'm now exaggerating. That shouldn't be like that. Okay, alrighty. So another thing we can do, right, is to go to the masking, and we can do there's a mask by feature somewhere. Mask by, not mask by feature, sorry, mask by peak and valleys, by smoothness, sorry. This will give you the curvature map, which is not what I want. Sorry. Maybe we just mask by cavity. Yeah, that's gonna be better. And then that's gonna be all the cavities. I can click and click, control click to reverse it, and then control click on it again to blur it. Oh, maybe that's too much of a blurring. You know what? I think I can only just rely on this now. Right. So what I can do here is go to the polypen, and there is a adjust colors. Okay. Now let me zoom in here, and I'm going to turn on the mask visibility, hat mask, and then I can go here and lower down the color intensity here and lower that down. You can see how I'm able to make it darker. Now, of course, you want to keep it as a manageable amount, and also I'm gonna make it a little bit more pale in this case, so saturation can lower down a little bit too. Yeah, for the pore area, and hit OK, right, and clear the mask. This is gonna give me that one extra dimension, right, for the color adjustments. Okay. All right, and frankly, this should be actually you know, things you need to do, right, to get the skin look colored, right? And of course there are other areas you can add, like a scar or something you can add, or some more variations to other passes, like the roughness and kind of thing, right? And those are all achievable here in ZBrush using Polypaint. Now I'm not gonna go too far here, right? This is already 1 hour and 80 minutes, but for a quick sculpt, right, this is not a bad result. Okay, so yeah, and that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.